Hello everybody, my name is Jane Porter. I'm one of the product managers for Cumulocity, and today I'd like to talk to you about the MQTT Service public preview. This is a feature that we're really excited about, and I hope by the end of this short video you will be too. So, I hear you asking yourself, why on earth do we need another MQTT service? Well, as we know, MQTT has been around for quite a while. I have been fortunate enough to be involved with this almost from its inception. I worked for Andy Stanford Clark as part of his team. So I was hearing firsthand the stories about how this started, about how the oil companies used to have to send somebody out in their anorak in the Land Rover to go to the various devices on the pipelines that measured the flow of oil, where they would have to print off the little ticket, bring it back to the office before they could actually bill their customers. Clearly not scalable. So the idea was to send the data directly from the device to head office via a satellite link. Well, the devices were small, really small, not in size in those days, but in resources. They were in a horribly inhospitable environment, and they were sending the data via a really super expensive link. Satellite links still are expensive, even more so in those days. So right from the get-go then, MQTT was designed for very constrained environments in all respects. And so with the IoT, it really has found its home and is effectively now the de facto standard for anybody wanting to link devices to an IoT platform. So clearly when Cumulocity first came on the scene, they decided they had to have an MQTT endpoint. But at that time, of course, people weren't connecting so many devices. These standards weren't quite set. It wasn't quite clear whether MQTT would be the standard. So we designed it in such a way that you had to have, you had to send your data in canonical format. There were restrictions on the topic structure. And of course, MQTT version 5 hadn't even been thought of then. So what we want to do is remove those restrictions as well as support MQTT version 5. So that's what we've done with the MQTT service. It's all very exciting. So then, let's actually move down the slide. So we have a service preview, and it supports MQTT version 5 straight out of the box. There's no constraints on the data format or your topic structure, so you can do what you like with both of those things. We have tenant isolation straight out of the box, so you don't have to worry about role-based access control or anything else. The data actually stays within your tenant. This is in line with everything else in Cumulocity. So to extend that security, we support certificate-based authentication. This is best practice. It's not yet industry standard best practice because it can be quite difficult to set up. So we have also got another public preview going on in parallel to this one for certificate authority. So we can sign certificates for you. I won't say too much more about it. There'll be another video coming along about that public preview in a short while. If you can't use certificate-based authentication for some reason, then we also support basic auth. So then all of the documentation is there on the MQTT service link in the slide. So you've got your device connected and you're starting to send your data. So what do you do next? Well, because this is a separate service from the core Cumulocity, we need to actually register the device, and we also need to do the data mapping, because remember, Cumulocity doesn't understand your proprietary data. So there are two ways you can do both of these things. The first is using samples and a Java library that we provide for you. We've created a framework to make that easy to do. Or there's a really cool open source dynamic mapper which you can use, and that might do exactly what you need straight out of the box, but because it's open source, you can also take the source code, change it to whatever you actually need to do for your particular business and device requirements. So then we've now got the MQTT all set up. And this is what you are going to really think about in the very, very high level. So this is not an architectural slide, folks. This is just showing you the sort of flow that is actually happening behind the scenes. So your device actually connects to the MQTT service, who immediately then asks Cumulocity, can I actually allow this device to connect? So you need to be using a user profile that is already allowed to log on to Cumulocity. The MQTT service then actually sends the data to the messaging service, where it is held on the topic structure. So the topic structure, the persistence is all managed by the messaging service. Then what happens next is, either using the dynamic mapper or your microservice, you actually take the data from the topic and you can then do what you like. You can cleanse the data, you can actually map it to the Cumulocity canonical format, and then you can use the standard Cumulocity APIs in order to push that data into Cumulocity, and then you can use all of the dashboards, etc. on Cumulocity to view that data. So very, very high level view of what's going on in the background. So how do you get started? I'm going to cover this in a minute in a demo. I've put this here, this slide here, so that you can refer back to it. But basically you just need 2 microservices and a nifty new beta features capability. Before I go into the demo, I do want to mention another public preview called Monitoring and Management. Monitoring and Management goes hand in hand really with the MQTT service. We have seen people get themselves into a bit of a pickle when they're actually writing new messaging microservices or applications, where you can forget about consumers, you create consumers, forget about them. But whilst you've got a consumer that's interested in data, the messaging service will actually keep that data on the topic. So topics can grow, and then end up blowing their limits, or you can end up with way too many consumers. So the monitoring and management capability is there to allow you to manage that. So without further ado then, I am going to show you a demo, and hope I swipe in the right direction. Yes, brilliant. To show you how you actually enable this all, and then what we've actually got. So this is a bit of a spoiler alert. So I'm in the admin app, and you can see here under ecosystem, there are microservices. Now, technically speaking, these aren't microservices. It's a way of allowing us to get the tenants subscribed to the capabilities. So you can see here, we've got the MQTT service and we've got the messaging management. And you want to be subscribed to both of those. If you're not, then it means for some reason this has not yet happened on your instance. Raise a requirement with global support, and the operations team will get that enabled for your tenant for you. Now, you don't have to use any of this, right? And, nothing happens if you are on a system where you see that you're subscribed. Don't panic. You don't have to use it. If, however, you are using the MQTT service, or you're using Notifications v2 or the microservice-backed data broker, then you will want the messaging management piece. Trust me on this. So what we need to do is go to our account here, where lots of useful information if you weren't already aware of this. But this is another new feature where we have, because we've got now public previews, you can manage your preview features. And this is where you set on the ability to actually use the messaging service monitoring and management. So having set this on, then we come down to monitoring here, and you'll see this in the left-hand side. And for the messaging service, I'm not using Data Broker on this tenant, so I don't have that here. But you see I've got 1 topic for notifications, 3 topics for the MQTT service. And we can see here that it shows you the message rate as to how it's currently working. And we can see that there's a bit of a backlog here. So clearly the consumer has stopped consuming for some reason. Other things to note are the number of topics are shown here. It's 300, And yes, you're entirely correct, that is very low. This is a public preview though, remember. So what we've done is we've set quite low limits in order to keep an eye on how the service behaves. If you need more topics, please do get in touch with us. Likewise, we've got a backlog quota per topic. So if you've got consumers that aren't consuming or something's going wrong and your topic actually fills up, you will see back pressure on the publisher. We've also got a time to live. So again, if you've got a slow build up on your topic and your consumers aren't keeping up, or your consumers died for some reason, then we will delete messages after this time to live has expired. So lots of useful information there. If we go into this topic, we can see that consumer looks like it's stopped. So what we can do is we can go and start the consumer, or what we can do is we can actually say, well, what I want to do is unsubscribe this consumer. And then once it's unsubscribed, that topic will naturally drain down by the time to live. So I've unsubscribed it. Under normal circumstances, what actually happens is that most MQTT clients are configured to automatically reconnect. So you actually do need to keep an eye on this if you've got a consumer that isn't very well formed. So keep an eye on it. And if you do feel you need to have a chat with the person that's written it, you can then say, look, it's really not behaving very well. So there we are then. The messaging service, monitoring and management, please do use this if you're using either Notifications V2 or the MQTT service or the data broker. It will be invaluable. So how to map the data. I've added some links here rather than extend the length of this video. There's lots of useful information about the dynamic mapper. There's a link to the GitHub, there's a link to the YouTube about it, and then there's also a link to the documentation about how to create your own microservice. There will be further videos from the Cumulocity team, everybody from the R&D team to the product management team, to the professional services teams, etc. We're all really excited about this, so keep a lookout for more videos. So then, to wrap up, you've now got a data agnostic integration capability on Cumulocity. You've got tenant isolation straight out of the box. Spoiler alert, for GA, we will be also providing you with the ability to have device level isolation. And what that means is that even within your tenant, the device data actually stays with the device. You can't actually have a situation where one device can actually snoop the data of another device. And that supports a lot of our customers' use cases. So that will be coming for GA. For device registration and data mapping, you've got an open source capability with a dynamic mapper, or you can write your own if you've got lots of stuff you actually want to do with your data. And you've got a monitoring and management interface that actually really helps you manage the behind the scenes situation with your topics and your consumers. Please do feel free to give us feedback on your experience. We'd love to hear from you. My email is there. And there's also a feedback portal link there as well. So with that, I'd like to say thank you very much. Have fun with your MQTT service public preview POC. Take care. Bye-bye.